morning, everybody. Paul Diebold with the Irvington Historical Society. We're here on Pleasant Run Parkway this morning. We're going to talk about North Irvington today, and we're going to talk about some of the beautiful houses up here along Pleasant Run Parkway in historic Irvington. Now, Peggy's going to pan the camera around. Peggy's our camera operator again today, and we're looking at some of the revival-style architecture on Pleasant Run Parkway. The brick Dutch colonial house there was built in 1923, and a man named John Parrish was the architect. Dutch colonial was one of the popular styles of architecture up here along the parkway. And you can see the Dutch colonial architecture here. It doesn't have the gambrel roof, but it has the big dormer across the front and that really interesting arched hood over the front doorway. And then we're going to pan over here. This is what we call Colonial Revival, built in 1927. And you can see the colonial attributes there, the multi-pane windows, the brick exterior, those nice little quarter-round windows up by the chimney. So these two styles were reviving the colonial period of America. Further down the way there, next to the Dutch colonial, was a Tudor revival house. So it's up here on the parkway, it's all about these styles that revived historic periods of architecture in sometimes in American history, sometimes in European history. We're going to walk down the parkway here. A beautiful stone house that was built by an electrical engineer in the mid-1930s is the next one. Beautiful magnolia tree there. Beautiful stonework here. All the houses up here in this part of Irvington tend to be brick and stone veneered, but it's a veneer. It's usually not solid brick. So as I said, this house is mid-1930s. The period of development up here in North Irvington is later than Old Irvington. Of course, Irvington started in 1870, but this part of the community did not develop until the 19-teens and 1920s. We're going to talk about that now. Peggy's panning the camera over to Pleasant Run Creek, Pleasant Run, really. And the parkway here. The parkway was part of an ambitious plan for the city of Indianapolis. In 1909, they hired a very famous landscape architect and civil engineer, George Edward Kessler. The city had tried to implement park plans for the whole of the city several times, but people were really upset that these plans did not include their part of the city. And Kessler was famous for designing these parkway systems for other cities, and he always used the natural advantages of that particular community to shape his plan. So and probably a lot of you are thinking, well, and we don't have mountains or scenic hills or vistas in central Indiana, but we do have these very scenic waterways. Kessler recognized that right away and came up with a plan to put parkways along them and bind them all into a system. We're panning down the parkway here. So in 1909, implementation started, and right away, Pleasant Run was targeted to have a parkway. The parkway began to develop in about 1915. And so by that time, the old part of Irvington on the other side of the creek was filling out pretty nicely, and developers began to buy land up here. This was all farmland up here north of the creek. And they began to plat subdivisions out. Instead of the crooked, windy streets of Old Irvington, we have nice straight streets, but very picturesque housing. So that's the parkway. You'll notice a lot of sycamore trees. That's with the whitish kind of bark on these trees. That was a very natural choice. It's probably something that Kessler specified when he was setting up the parkway. because sycamore trees, they'll thrive near a waterway. They need a lot of water. So we're going to move up the street here.
Back to the stone house.
After the stone house, which you can see has copper gutters and a terracotta tile roof. The terracotta tiling is something that was popular at that time, and it endures for a long time. Indeed, this house has probably had its roof now since 1935, still going strong.
And as we walk, I'll show you some of the other houses. Well, and cars, sorry about that.
Now as we're walking here in North Irvington, you'll notice almost all the houses are one of these revival styles of architecture. The Parkway houses we looked at first are larger, and those were the more choice lots. And the more average size lots were back here on the side streets. We're on Bolton right now. And these are all mainly Tudor revival houses. You're going to look shortly here at a very interesting house. Trying to get some of my materials ready here.
Okay. Well,
so when people were building these houses at this time period, there was a real housing crunch after World War I. People were looking for different ways to kind of cut corners. And one of the ways you could do that was to basically not have to hire an architect. So this group formed of architects called the Architects Small House Service Bureau. They would provide a stock plan which you would take to an architect and modify to suit your lot. And here actually is the model for the house that we're looking at right now. This is taken from a 1937 book that was kept by the Architects Small House Service Bureau office of Indianapolis, Indiana. There were different regional offices. Indianapolis was the office for the upper Midwest, which they called the Lake Region. So that is the pattern for this quaint little bungalow here that has a little bit of Tudor, a little bit of colonial revival, and a lot of charm. I'll show you another example of that here. This house is over on another street here in North Irvington. This is a Tudor revival example that stands over on Audubon, and you can see they came with the plans, suggestions of what the fireplace would look like and so forth, complete, which you would then modify to your site. So there are a number of these pattern book houses up here in North Irvington, and there are a couple kit houses, and then there are a lot of houses by local builders as well. So,
and the neighborhood again. We go back to the Parkway, which is harder to see with the trees, but it's there.
So we're going to close out today.
It's a short one today, folks.
Short one. We're going to be...
Hello, Poochie. Historic dog.
Historic dog. We're going to be reprinting this book called Greater Irvington. If you've wondered how we know these different facts and information about these houses, it all comes from the research that we did for this book, which is going to be reprinted with even more information and even more photographs. So look for that soon. And lastly, we'll close with our pitch. If you can help us out by going to irvingtonhistorical.info and become a member of the Irvington Historical Society, it will help us in this time we have here. We cannot hold programs in our building, and we do not have very much income at all, as many of us are in that same situation. But $25 makes you a member of the Irvington Historical Society and helps us out. So thanks, folks. We'll see you next week. We're not sure if this is the last one or not. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day. Stay healthy, stay strong.